Let's go! The early period is here, and I'm going to give you 5 storylines that really matter when it comes to recruiting, because I do think we tend to overstate certain things during the early period, and this year is going to be the most unique year ever, starting off here with obviously Brian Kelly. So that's the biggest storyline. How is Brian Kelly going to attack this recruiting period, okay? But really, the biggest domino has already fallen, and Walker Howard pretty much saying that he's going to sign pen to paper. And I know everyone had to get their jokes in because Brian Kelly pretty much did the cringiest, most awkward dance moves, but who cares? I like that, and I do think recruits actually like a coach who is going to be himself no matter where he's going to be. I would prefer coaches doing cringy dance moves with 5-star quarterbacks in tow. And dance moves aside, at least Walker Howard is enjoying Brian Kelly. I mean, Walker Howard was visiting Notre Dame before BK even signed with LSU. So keep this in mind as well. It's not just as a starter, but as a backup. Walker Howard is a better quarterback than TJ Finley and Max Johnson, thus making him a better backup quarterback if he is to back up Nuss or a potential transfer, which we will get to in just a second. So it is ridiculous how much Walker Howard changes this football program. Second biggest storyline is the coaching staff, because so many of these coaches for LSU has been doing a lot of recruiting during this early period, even not knowing if they're going to be a part of LSU next season. So we already know they've moved on from Corey Raymond, who went to Florida, Kev Falk, who will no longer be an on-field coach. And right now, Blake Baker has been doing a lot of good work for LSU when it comes to recruiting, and we don't know officially if he is going to be back next year. The same could be said of Andre Carter, who's put in a lot of work to get Quincy Wiggins to potentially sign. So, look, while these recruits are very important, the fact that LSU doesn't have an official offensive or defensive coordinator lined up is going to hurt them when it comes to getting some of these recruits this cycle. Third biggest storyline is actually universally the biggest storyline in all of college football recruiting, and it's the transfer portal, okay? So, look, it's about to get wild with the portal, and there's a lot of different ways you can view it. Now remember, the transfer portal rule where you are immediately eligible to play the next season was actually put in place last year, but now this is the first full cycle where this is actually a thing, and we're already seeing a bunch of players who started and played a lot and even played well at their certain schools still packing their bags. I shared a stat earlier today that there is as many SEC West starting quarterbacks entering the portal than SEC starting quarterbacks coming back when it comes to the SEC West, which is pretty insane. And then if you include Miles Brennan in there, that is 4 SEC West starters that have entered the portal and only 3 coming back, with Matt Corral, of course, going to the NFL. And it's not just quarterbacks, it's also running back, where Jahmyr Gibbs out of Georgia Tech, Tank Bigsby out of Auburn, 2 big-time talents. I can also easily see Brian Kelly getting aggressive in the transfer portal, not only at running back, but of course at quarterback, because right now, we are in a position where Walker Howard and Garrett Nussmeier are going to be the only scholarship quarterbacks, and they have a grand total of 1 year of college experience between them. So there's a lot of really good transfer portal quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel's still out there. Obviously, Keaton Slovis is a big one. If you want to get really fancy, what about Bo Nix or Zach Calzada? Michael Penix, there's a long, long list. Spencer Rattler, even Miles Brennan coming back. So, yes, we get really excited about the new high school prospects, but there's another new transfer portal rule that's just come out that you can sign up to 7 transfer portal players on top of 25 high school players if you have 7 players into the transfer portal on your current team. And LSU has basically probably already met that threshold with Eli Ricks, Landon Jackson, Max Johnson, and that list goes on. So, yes, the transfer portal is going to be popping, But that doesn't mean that you can only sign 7 transfers. You can sign as many transfers as you want. So because of this new rule, you could see LSU get very aggressive in the transfer portal. Now, why is that important? Well, that has really nothing to do with the early signing period because, of course, the early signing period is more high school football focused. It's not so much transfer focused. So I do believe this year the early signing period isn't as impactful as last year, especially for LSU, and I'll share why in just a second. But I got a great idea, guys. We're going to be doing a bowl pick'em, yes, and the winner of the bowl pick'em on ESPN will be winning a PHL prize pack, including some Joe Burrow swag. So make sure you sign up down below, and it's totally free to join. So make sure you check that out. Don't forget, Jeremy Hill is going to be on the show Thursday as our first ever PHL guest, and I'm giving away a autographed Jeremy Hill Strata rookie card. Last year, LSU had 20 players signed during the early period, which is an extremely high amount, especially considering you only have 5 players with those current rules. That is no longer the case. LSU has 32 slots that they can use in total, and they're not even going to get close to that number of 20 when it comes to early signees. And that's for 2 reasons. The first reason is that there's a lot of really talented targets that LSU's going after that is not signing during the early period. The 3 biggest to really keep an eye out for: Harold Perkins, a 5-star linebacker out of Texas; Jacoby Matthews, a 5-star safety out of Ponchatoula; and Trevante Citizen, a 4-star running back. So I can easily see LSU saving 3 slots for those 3 really big-time players. So now we get to the final and pretty painful storyline of this recruiting cycle, is that this is going to be rough for LSU when it comes to in-state prospects, and in particular, skill position players. Don't be shocked if Shaz Preston ends up signing with Alabama or somebody else, or Texas, or whoever that may be. Don't be shocked if Le'Veon Moss doesn't flip from A&M to Baton Rouge. And if you look historically, this is going to be the roughest year when it comes to early signees at major skill position players from Louisiana, which kind of stinks, right? What if Etienne ends up signing with Clemson? Not the end of the world, right? Well, it's not, but of course you could be in a position where LSU has 0 wide receivers and 0 running backs signed. Boom, I'm looking at you right now, okay? Yes, you, I'm going to need your help because now some of you guys are recruiting aces. You look at this stuff every single day. Some of you may not be, but you could still comment down below. Do you think LSU is actually going to get to 15 signees, where, of course, last year they had 20 signees at the end of the early signing period? Now, I know a lot of you have sent me messages about LSU's current national rank, which is 26, which would be by far LSU's worst of the modern era. In fact, they've never been outside the top 20. But let me calm your nerves down just a little bit, because earlier today, Austin Ausberry, the 4-star defensive back at a U High, his dad Verge works at LSU and played at LSU. He picked Auburn. Now, I don't think that is as interesting as this other graphic that CBS and 247 Sports showed us, that if Austin Ausberry, one 4-star corner, would have committed to LSU, LSU would have shot into the top 20, and that is just one corner. So that shows you, whenever you're in this middle, like outside the top 20 national rank, how much one commitment actually changes your rank. Now, you tell me if Austin Ausberry is that big of a difference maker that is worth 8 full team slots. He's a good player, but he's not worth that much. And that's the thing. When you have such a low amount of commitments that LSU currently has, your national recruiting rate is going to be in flux, especially with the transfer portal being the way that it is now. So the first thing before I give you this final projection is understand that the idea of recruiting rankings is totally flipped on its head simply because the transfer portal has changed this game so much. So I think college football recruiting will never be the same, and you have to include that into your own personal analysis when it comes to evaluating recruiting classes, okay? Now, as far as who is specifically going to sign, I think you should feel pretty comfortable about 9 of these players signing. I think all the Louisiana guys are going to sign, potentially except one, and that is Tyji Hill, a defensive lineman who just took a visit to Tulane. I feel as if he will end up signing for LSU, but I can easily see him not being a part of this class. And another player that I think you should keep your eye on is Jadarian Rom and Demario Tolan. I feel okay about Demario, but Jadarian Rom, if you were to ask me right now, I don't think he's going to be a part of this class. That was one of Corey Raymond's ace recruits for this cycle, and of course, Corey Raymond went to Florida. I can easily see Jadarian following him there or potentially to another SEC school. So I think the other 9 will end up signing during the early period. Now, how many extra players will end up signing? Well, I'm going to give you 2 more. Let's go Landon Ibieta, who just recently received an offer, and he would be LSU's only wide receiver signee during the early period. I'm also going to give you our guy Jordan Allen, a 3-star defensive back at LCA who just received an LSU offer. He's wanted it for quite some time. He is really close with some players in this class, and he's just a baller. I really do like him a lot. What about Quincy Wiggins? 4-star defensive end. Andre Carter staying around this far in the cycle would really help out getting Quincy Wiggins. I'm going to go with yes, an optimistic yes. The same I'm going to do here for Kendrick Law, who really, of the elite Louisiana recruits, has probably been the quietest when it comes to recruiting noise. Is he a running back? Is he a wide receiver? Is he a defensive back? I actually like him a lot at running back, but I do think he ends up being a wide receiver. So that will then put the commitments at 13. Now, there are some other players. DJ Wesolak is a defensive lineman that I've heard a lot of on Go247, Rivals. I heard it in Blake's Twitter space with Are You Serious recently. Is that where I heard his name? Either way, he's a really good 4-star defensive lineman that I think will end up being a part of this class. So yeah, let me know, okay? Because obviously if those guys do commit, that puts LSU's number at 14. Now, you're looking at Landon Ibieta, who just got that LSU offer. I do think he ends up signing, but still, this could be the only wide receiver that LSU brings in this cycle. You got to go all the way back to 2017. The last time LSU did not land the number 1 wide receiver in the state of Louisiana was Devonta Smith, and he ended up picking Alabama. You saw how huge it ended up being. So will Shaz Preston change his mind? I hope. But we move on. This obviously is LaTerrence Welch. Hopefully he's wearing that number 1 uniform. It looks good on you, LW. And we end this right here. Fitzgerald West, a 3-star defensive lineman who will be playing offensive line for LSU. So, yeah, it's going to be a fun week of live streams. Comment down below anything recruiting. If you guys have a question, some of you might not understand how the early period works, the late period. If you have any questions about that, I'm going to answer as many as I can in the comment section down below. I'm going to dedicate this video to one of the most inspirational comments I've ever received. Chris fighting for us and serving our country overseas. That is absolutely phenomenal. This question, I'm telling you, it got me in my feels. And as many of you know from watching our live streams, we have so much active military and veterans that watch our channel, so that's obviously really freaking cool. So Chris, if you're watching, please shoot me a message, man, because I got some bug bands and some other swag to send you. And yeah, this was a fun video. And yeah, I don't know. I feel kind of weird about this cycle, right, with the new coaching staff, but we'll see what happens. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! We're doing calzones tonight. Liz,